I want you to picture something for a second. Just close your eyes if you can and visualize a blank white computer screen.
Okay, I'm with you.
Right in the middle, there's that classic colorful logo, and just beneath it, a single empty rectangular box. I mean, for 25 years, that little box has basically been our front door to the entire internet.
Yeah, absolutely.
You type in a few keywords, you hit enter, and then you just begin the hunt through pages of blue links.
Yeah.
But as of the recent Google I/O 2026, that front door has basically been boarded up. The era of like typing keywords and hunting for answers is officially dead.
It really is a fundamental dismantling of how we experience the web. I mean, we are moving away from a tool that simply retrieves information, and we're stepping into an ecosystem mediated by what the industry is calling an agentic multimodal companion.
Right.
The simple transaction of, query and retrieve, that's just gone.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because our mission for this deep dive is to figure out exactly what this transition means for you, for your daily workflow, and honestly, how to navigate this entirely new version of the web without losing your critical thinking skills along the way.
Which is going to be a challenge.
Exactly. We are looking at a monumental shift in how human beings interact with knowledge. And just to put the scale of this into perspective, Liz Reed, Google's VP of Search, she actually stood on stage and called this the biggest update to the iconic search box since its debut over 25 years ago.
And, that's really not just marketing hyperbole when you look at the actual mechanics of what they've built. For a quarter of a century, we all learned this weird, truncated robotic language just to talk to search engines.
Oh, yeah. Like speaking in caveman text.
Right. You didn't ask a natural question. You typed, like, best Italian restaurant near me open now. You were filtering yourself to match the machine.
Right. And now that static text box has become this dynamic smart box.
Yeah.
And the leap isn't just that it understands conversational English better. The real leap is that it's multimodal, right? Like, it accepts entirely different forms of reality.
Yeah, you aren't limited to text anymore.
Exactly. You can drop in an image, a video clip, a dense, like 40-page academic PDF, an Excel file, or even just point it at an array of open Chrome tabs you've been agonizing over all day.
And this is where we have to look at how multimodal inputs completely change the friction of discovery. When you feed a system multiple types of media at once, you are no longer relying on your own ability to describe a complex problem. You are just handing the problem over.
I was looking at the examples they gave at I/O, and the kitchen scenario made this so concrete for me. Let's say you're standing in your kitchen at like 6 p.m. Instead of typing recipes with chicken, half an onion, and wilting spinach.
Which takes forever to type out, by the way.
Right. Instead, you just hold up your phone and snap a photo of the inside of your fridge. You upload that single image. The system doesn't just read the image and give you a link to a recipe blog. It builds a customized pasta recipe on the fly, complete with a nutritional comparison widget based exactly on the specific brands and amounts of food it recognized sitting on your shelves.
And this introduces a really critical piece of technology called generative UI, so generative user interface. The screen you are looking at is being constructed in real time to fit the specific contours of your query.
So it's not a pre-made page.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you upload a PDF of a really dense scientific paper about, say, climate models, the search engine doesn't just link you to more papers. The engine reads it and dynamically generates an interactive dashboard right there on the results page.
Wow.
It builds sliders so you can manipulate the data yourself. It pulls out verified citations and formats them into a neat column. It literally adapts its very shape to what you need in that exact moment.
It's like moving from using a static library card catalog where you find the Dewey Decimal number, walk to the shelf, and just hope the book is useful, to suddenly having a personal librarian.
That's a great way to put it.
But this librarian doesn't just find the books. They read them, synthesize them, and build a custom interactive diorama for you right at the front desk.
The librarian analogy works so well because it highlights the transfer of effort. The heavy lifting of synthesis, the reading, the cross-referencing, the formatting, all of that is being offloaded from human cognition to the machine's processing power.
But wait, I got to push back on this a little bit. Is this actually less friction? Because sometimes I just don't want a diorama,
Fair point.
Sometimes I just want a quick, simple answer. Does building a whole custom dashboard overcomplicate the act of asking a basic question? Like, if I just want to know how long to boil an egg, I don't need a generative widget comparing altitude and egg sizes with interactive sliders. I just want to see the number 7.
Well, the engineers at Google are actively wrestling with that exact tension. Building a massive personalized dashboard for every tiny query is incredibly computationally expensive, and frankly, it's annoying for the user.
Yeah, it would drive me crazy.
Right. So the engine driving this new experience is Gemini 3.5 Flash. And the reason the Flash part is important here is its latency and intent recognition. The model is trained to aggressively evaluate the complexity of your request before it builds anything.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So if you ask about boiling an egg, its intent recognition flags it as a simple fact retrieval, and it just gives you the number 7. But if you upload an MRI scan and 3 medical journals, it recognizes the need for a deep, synthesized workspace.
So it's analyzing the weight of the question before deciding what kind of interface to build. And if the smart box changes how we ask questions, the industry impact reports suggest the real revolution is actually in when we get answers. The web is shifting from a place you go to ask things to a place that proactively taps you on the shoulder.
Oh.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I'm talking about the introduction of information agents.
This is the definitive shift from a reactive search engine to an agentic AI ecosystem. And we really need to clearly separate those two concepts. Reactive AI is essentially a highly advanced calculator.
Right. You type it in, you get an answer.
Exactly. You punch in the numbers, it gives you an output, and then it goes completely dormant until you touch it again. Agentic AI, on the other hand, operates with continuous initiative. It is more like a financial advisor who watches the markets while you sleep and texts you when it's time to move your money.
Meaning you can create these personalized agents that basically live in the background of your digital life, monitoring the web 24/7. It's like having a tireless intern who never sleeps,
Yeah.
just obsessively refreshing web pages for you. Let's say you're a sneakerhead. You don't just search for shoes manually anymore. You spin up an agent and say, watch for a price drop on this specific vintage pair across all secondary markets.
Yeah.
And it just hunts for you in the background.
And because it's powered by a Gemini 3.5 Flash, it has this massive context window and the ability to execute parallel tasks. So your intern isn't just checking one website at a time.
It's doing everything at once.
Right. It is simultaneously monitoring 50 sneaker forums, cross-referencing the pricing against your personal budget spreadsheet, and checking the seller's historical reliability metrics, all in milliseconds.
Or consider the professional applications too. You could instruct an agent to follow breaking science news within a highly specific niche field like material science. It doesn't just ping you with a link every time a new article is published.
Because that would just be a Google alert.
Exactly. We've had that forever. This reads the new publications, compares their findings against previous studies you've already read, synthesizes the new data, and sends you a customized, actionable insight.
Which fundamentally alters the speed of professional research. I mean, you are no longer wasting hours filtering out noise. The agent acts as an incredibly aggressive intelligence sieve.
It's incredible from a productivity standpoint, but digging into the mechanics of this, I immediately hit a wall regarding privacy. Because if these agents are monitoring our highly specific personal interests 24/7, cross-referencing our budgets, knowing exactly what we've read and what we haven't.
It's a lot of data.
Right. Isn't that a massive data hoarding concern? If my tireless intern knows everything I'm looking at all the time, that's a staggering amount of behavioral data concentrated in one place.
It is a massive vulnerability, to be honest. And it's built into the very architecture of agentic AI. To function effectively, an agent requires continuous, deep context. It needs to know your past behavior to accurately predict your future needs. Google does emphasize that this processing happens securely, often utilizing on-device capabilities when possible. But the reality is that an agentic web requires an unprecedented transfer of personal context from the user to the ecosystem. You are basically trading privacy for profound convenience.
Okay, so having this intern is clearly a powerful, if slightly terrifying, tool for the user. But let's flip the perspective for a second. What does this mean for the actual websites? Like, what about the human creators the intern is reading? Because if my agent is reading the sneaker blog for me, I'm not going to that blog.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this brings us to a profound economic tension. The democratization of knowledge is expanding discovery for the end user, but it is fundamentally breaking the business models of publishers. The 2025 Pew Research data on the impact of AI overviews paints a really stark picture of this.
The numbers in that report are just staggering. Historically, if you ranked at the top of search results, you might see a click-through rate, a CTR, of roughly 15%. But with AI summaries intercepting the query and answering the question directly on the search page, that number has plummeted to around 8%.
It's a massive drop.
And this is what analysts are calling the rapid rise of the zero-click web.
The zero-click web is exactly what it sounds like. A user searches for something, the AI instantly reads all the relevant websites, perfectly synthesizes the information into a neat paragraph, and the user never actually clicks through to the source material. They get their answer and they just leave.
Let's walk through what that actually looks like for a creator. Imagine an independent writer who spends 40 hours testing a new pair of hiking boots. They take them out in the mud, they take original photos, they write a detailed 2,000-word review.
Which takes a lot of time and resources.
Exactly. Then I come along and ask the smart box, are these hiking boots good in the mud? The AI instantly scrapes that creator's conclusion, tells me, yes, they have great traction, and I close my phone. I never click the link.
Yep.
Which means that creator gets 0 page views, 0 ad impressions, and 0 affiliate link clicks. If the AI intercepts all the traffic, how do these independent writers or like recipe creators make money to keep publishing? Aren't these agents essentially starving the very ecosystem of information they rely on to function?
It is the existential crisis of the modern web. If organic traffic disappears, the financial incentive to create original, high-quality information vanishes with it. The internet literally risks cannibalizing itself.
So what do?
Well, what is the survival tactic for creators? According to the industry analysis, the only way to avoid being entirely swallowed by AI summaries is extreme EEA.
EEAT. That's experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness.
Correct. But we need to look at how an AI actually measures that now. It's not just looking for keywords anymore. To survive in an ecosystem dominated by agentic AI, creators have to produce deep, uniquely human content that a machine cannot easily synthesize away.
What does that look like in practice?
The AI's ranking algorithms are actively looking for first-person narrative, unique photographic metadata, and latent semantic markers that indicate real-world experience.
So if you write a basic listicle like top 10 ways to tie your shoes, you're dead in the water. The AI summarizes that instantly, and you get absolutely 0 traffic.
Completely 0.
But if you write a deeply investigative piece on the history of shoemaking in a specific Italian village, complete with original interviews and, photos you took, that becomes premium data.
Precisely. The agents desperately need to cite highly unique, authoritative sources to remain credible to the user. So the web will likely bifurcate. Commodity information, basic facts, simple how-tos will be completely absorbed by the AI. But deep, investigative, heavily experience-based content will become incredibly valuable.
So creators are almost forced to churn out highly complex, expert content just to survive, which completely changes our information diet. Which honestly brings up a scary thought. How is consuming all these perfectly synthesized AI-generated dashboards actually affecting our brains? Because the research from the PMC and MDPI on cognitive impacts paints a pretty intense picture.
This raises an important question, right? The psychological impact is a double-edged sword. On the positive side, the reduction in cognitive load is monumental. Users can grasp multidisciplinary, highly complex topics in a fraction of the time because the AI is removing the friction of sorting through contradictory sources. We are seeing highly personalized learning environments emerging at scale.
But the warnings in those medical and psychological reviews are pretty glaring. There's a massive risk of over-reliance on the AI. And this leads to my favorite analogy from the research. Think about what happened to us when GPS navigation apps became standard on our phones. It caused a phenomenon psychologists call cognitive offloading. You no longer need to remember how to navigate your own city, so your brain simply stops trying. You literally lose your natural sense of direction.
The GPS analogy is great for understanding convenience, but it actually falls a bit short when we look at the stakes involved here. Losing your sense of direction and taking a wrong turn is one thing. Losing your ability to evaluate if a piece of synthesized medical, legal, or financial information is true. That's a much higher stakes game.
Yeah, that's dangerous.
Exactly. If the machine constantly does the reasoning for you, the mental muscle required to analyze arguments naturally atrophies.
Which means we risk a complete erosion of our digital curiosity. It is so incredibly easy to just accept the perfectly formatted, beautifully generated dashboard the AI hands us. But we know these models aren't perfect, right? Even with all the updates, they still hallucinate. They can still make things up and present them with total, unshakable confidence.
Google has addressed this by introducing advanced grounding techniques in Gemini 3.5. Grounding is actually a fascinating mechanism. Instead of just letting the AI hallucinate an answer from its vast, murky training data, the system forces the AI to cross-reference its generated text against a trusted, real-time index of search results before it shows it to you.
So it's double-checking its own work.
It's essentially fact-checking itself in milliseconds by comparing its output against high-authority websites.
But even with grounding, it's not bulletproof, right? If it pulls from a biased source or if it hallucinates a connection between two real facts, the output is still flawed. And if our critical thinking muscles are atrophying just as we are being fed this synthesized information at an unprecedented scale,
Yeah.
the risks of unchecked misinformation just multiply.
Which is why the academic literature stresses that advanced digital literacy is more crucial now than ever. Knowing how to write a clever prompt for an AI is no longer the primary skill. The vital skill is knowing how to aggressively audit the AI's output.
And we also have to recognize the societal impact here, specifically the digital divide. If this level of proactive, intelligent assistance, having a genius intern working for you 24/7 becomes the baseline for productivity and education in the workplace, equitable access to these tools is just essential.
Oh, absolutely.
If only a wealthy subset of society can afford the premium tiers of these agentic AI tools, the gap between the haves and have-nots in terms of sheer productivity is going to explode.
It's a structural shift in how society generates value. And it emphasizes that true intelligence doesn't just reside in the model's ability to pull data together. True human intelligence remains in how we discern, question, and apply that synthesized knowledge in the real world.
So what does this all mean? If we pull all of these threads together, we are looking at a permanent transformation. The Google search we grew up with, that reactive index of billions of pages, is gone.
It's in the history books now.
It has been replaced by a proactive, multimodal companion. It accepts whatever messy data you throw at it. It builds custom interfaces on the fly just for you, and it watches the digital world on your behalf 24 hours a day.
It holds massive promise. I mean, it can strip away the tedious, busy work of research and present you with the precise insights you need to make better decisions faster.
But it comes with a steep price of admission. It requires you to operate differently. You can't just be a passive consumer of information anymore, blindly trusting the top result. You really have to act like a scientist.
Yeah.
You have to verify the primary sources, question the biases of your own digital agent, and actively maintain your critical thinking skills. The machine can find the connections, but you still have to decide what those connections actually mean for your life.
The synthesis is automated, but the judgment must remain human.
Exactly. And that leaves us with one final lingering thought. Something for you to chew on after you finish listening today. If we are moving rapidly toward a world where we rely entirely on proactive agents, the agents that perfectly understand our preferences, know exactly what we like, and curate our information diet 24/7, how do we ensure we still experience serendipity? How do we stumble upon the unexpected? How do we accidentally encounter ideas that completely challenge our worldview if we are living inside a perfectly tailored, endlessly comfortable digital echo chamber built by an AI that basically just wants to please us?
It might be the greatest philosophical challenge for the next era of the web, designing for the unexpected.
It really is. I highly encourage you to go test these new features out. Try uploading a weird, complex image to the search box. Try building your first background agent to monitor a hobby of yours. And just see how it feels to interact with the web this way. But above all, actively fight to keep your curiosity alive. Go down a random rabbit hole that the AI didn't suggest for you. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.